So it appears Elon Musk is starting to have beef with Christopher Nolan regarding the movie that he just created called the Odyssey. And well, the big controversy is the fact that Helen of Troy, I don't know if you've watched Troy, but there was an original film that was made with Brad Pitt. So yeah, that one, you remember Helen of Troy, the lady. Now Christopher Nolan, in his movie called The Odyssey, which is scheduled to come out later this year, he decided to cast Helen of Troy as a black woman. Wow. And apart from Elon Musk and all of these, and a whole host of other people that are sort of influential, just a general, there's been quite a lot of outrage by the general public. And you know, they're saying it's a desecration of Greek culture. And you know, like, how can you have a black person playing a Greek god? I mean, a Greek woman who's also supposedly, who's purported to be one of the most beautiful women in the world. And yeah, and I don't know, it's just been getting under my skin, the fact that all of this outrage is out there. And mind you, this is again about something as superficial or as pathetic as skin color. Like, really? That's what we're going to argue about in 2026? That it's not, we're not attacking the merits of her acting or whether she's a good actress or not. No, the fact that Lupita is black, it's an outrage. Like, how can we, how historic, it goes against, flies against the face of historical accuracy. So, you know, you get these people that are arguing that it's historically inaccurate, and you're like, okay, that sounds fantastic, but really, this whole movie is about a poem. It's got Greek gods, it's got a whole host of things that are mythical and actually not based in reality. And you know, and when you really think about it, what a lot of people, particularly the ones that are really outraged, and you know, it's not coincidence that it's Elon Musk who is one of the biggest proponents of this, or like who's just outraged, because he comes from a country where I'm actually filming from, South Africa, where this is a country that was divided for the longest time on something as something superficial and pathetic like the color of your skin. Oh my word, it's actually pretty ridiculous when you think about it. And you know, it obviously afforded white people with many advantages. And you know, I think Elon Musk still to some degree holds some of those racist undertones that he obviously garnered from this country. That's why he even does the Nazi salute. So we shouldn't really be too surprised. But anyway, the point is, people who are worried about historical accuracy, you know, they'll be screaming and shouting, this is a fictional story, doesn't really matter. And by and large, I think, you know, they're saying this because it really just represents fear. And I think what you don't realize is the world, primarily when you look at it from just a representation point of view, the world is not white. It isn't, not even close. But if you watch Hollywood, you would actually think. And firstly, if we go back to the point of Hollywood being trying to be accurate, if you ever see any true story or a movie that's sort of based on a true story, you always look at the actors at the end, and when they reveal the real characters, you're like, wow, the characters are generally not as good looking. So this whole thing about Hollywood being a true representation of reality, no, it's not at all. I mean, they'll cast the best looking people, and usually there's a whole lot of miscasting. In fact, there was another movie that I watched called Maria and it starred Angelina Jolie. And you know, if you look at it, okay, if you're trying to be authentic, she was singing, she was playing an opera singer, an Italian opera singer who's pretty famous. And I just thought of it when I was watching it. Why the hell is this thing being played by an American who sings in English? And not only like the entire movie said in English, and it just felt so inauthentic. So again, this whole narrative about, you know, we're trying to be authentic And that's not Hollywood at all. I mean, all of this, and if you think about it, nobody's complaining that this movie is gonna be set in English, for instance. And you know actually how much nuance you lose through translation. There's far more that's lost in that than simply changing the skin tone of somebody. That's irrelevant. I mean, as long as the character doesn't necessarily change, whether they're played by dark-skinned person, that's neither here nor there. And it's really what I think is important. It's just how well they play the character and they embody, whether it's the mannerisms or even the spirit of the person. The skin color, again, that's another superficial thing. But again, I think when you unpack this, you're trying to look at it, the people that are most vocal are people that are just fearful that perhaps when you look at the hegemony, which you could say that, you know, people that are fair-skinned enjoy, is kind of crumbling and slowly, and it's just inevitable. They are fearful that the world is actually going to start looking like the way it is actually composed. You know, if you look at it, the world is really, in terms of population, fair-skinned people, which might be termed Caucasian, they make up less than even probably around 10% of the entire globe. I mean, for instance, Africa is over a billion, 1.2 something there, 1.2 billion, China 1.4, India approaching 1.5 billion. That's already basically close to, it's 4.5, nearly 5 billion people that are not, and in a world of 8 billion people, already somewhere close to 5 are not white, like just flat out. And then obviously there are you know, other races, and you know, if we think South America, we think China, I mean, anyway, the list is endless. So the fact that the world currently, as we view it, particularly from the lens of Hollywood, it's absolutely warped and looks nothing like it's supposed to be. Really not at all. So I think a lot of these people are just afraid that the world, which for the longest time appeared to just project them as the center of the universe, unfortunately that world is slowly changing. And obviously when you've been at the top, nobody ever wants to go down, and that's really what it is. That's all it represents, because when you scratch beneath the surface, this is all nothing but a ploy from desperate people who just don't want to recognize reality, which is a reality that, hey, you're not the only race that exists. You're not at the top. And you know, this whole throwing a tantrum that somebody decided to cast somebody who's dark skinned, it's just nothing but, in argumentation, we'll call it a red herring. It's just waste of time. And really, it's just folks that are clinging on to a past and a reality that never was, actually, if you think about it. So, and it's inevitable, and in fact it's very good that we actually are casting people that are different and are more representative of what the world actually looks like. Because when a black kid somewhere in a village in Africa sees Lupita, and that's the problem with these movies, they obviously have far-reaching audience. Not just that, they don't just screen in America, they screen everywhere, and so they inspire a lot of different people. And that's why you actually want a diverse cast, because then other people can relate, they can see themselves in that. And you know, that's why you're gonna have a world through that mechanism that actually reflects more of what it actually, what the world really looks like. And I think, don't we want that? Don't we want a world that actually represents the people that live in it? I think it's a more interesting world, more diverse, more, and I mean, think about it. The people living in Mongolia right now, living their best lives. The people living, even for instance, Russia, You know, Russia, you think of Vladimir Putin. No, that's actually, if you go to Russia, Russia is probably one of the most diverse countries that you can get. Why? Because it's a massive country and spans many geographies. So, yeah, guys, let's stop living in a bubble. And honestly, if somebody makes noise, just know that they're just fearful. And it's just trying to hold on to a world that no longer exists and will never exist.